After reading whole things, I think designing identity through voice and literacy in context that are record the voice and design self and identity. The first paragraph in this part, it briefly introduced the voice and identity. In the first part of design identity through voice, in the first 5 lines, my thought is that author wants to make a connection to the page 459, the discourses and identity, and how it affects second language literacy development. And learners develop their voice in the second language. So I think author wants to connect the voice with second language literacy more fluently. The example is showing how complex the process of learning language and the relationship of successes and failures in accomplishing goals in the target language. Then it also plays the role of transition, and author writes this example to introduce the next sentence that when language learners speak, they exchange the information with target language speakers and organizing and reorganizing a sense of who they are and how they relate to the social world. Author use Jamel's idea to show readers that learners create their own voices in the second language from reflective and generative power of writing. And instead of viewing discourse practices as discrete sets of conventions or process of enculturation and that overdetermine the learner's identity. Author read this as a reason to show why Jamel argues that students could appropriate elements from a diversity of discourses to create a new written voice. Author uses Cram's elaboration to introduce the concept of voice and the relationship between voice and identity. And the next paragraph, the first sentence, is to make connection to Goffman's reproduction formats in discursive interaction, which is principal, animator, and author. A principal, this part is kind of definition, and author used, in other words, to give an easier explanation of principle, and the author used same way to explain the animator and author. The last sentence in this paragraph, which is kind of summarizing of voice and identity, how voice affects social roles and identities in the representation of self and other, and move to next paragraph more smoothly. The last paragraph, the first sentence, gives more explanation about voice and identity by using Kress's conceptions of design, and use Kress and other in the New London group to introduce design is an essential textual principle, and it corresponds the title of this part, designing identity through voice. This part, I think the author writes it because she wants to tell readers learning language has dynamic process. The last sentence here, she makes a conclusion of design, voice, and identity, and she wants to connect to the next part, collective identities in computer-mediated communication.